This show is sponsored by Horizon HVAC, who you can count on for all of your heating and cooling needs. Today's episode is brought to you by Burns Roofing, your trusted roofing experts right here in Rhode Island. Whether you're in need of repairs, a roof full replacement, or just some professional advice, Burns Roofing has you covered. With their years of experience and commitment to quality, you can rest easy knowing your home is in good hands. Call Burns Roofing for all your roofing needs. For this episode, we have Kaylyn, sorry, I thought it was Kayla. We have Kalyn Chattelle and Todd Chattelle for episode, I guess we could say number 2 with Todd Chattelle, and he brought his daughter. And last episode we talked about her battle with cancer and what she went through to get through it. And it fascinated me when I was talking to Todd about it because I've never spoken with somebody that had that close of a battle with cancer and that had to overcome it. I just want to know about the whole from the start of when you found out and just what led up to how the strength that you had to kind of find, and especially being the daughter of Todd. I know he's a very strong guy, and growing up around him, I'm sure you got a lot of that, and I'm sure it helped you through this battle. How did it start? When did you find out?
It started by feeling sick, and I was like laying, and I just was in my bed. For some reason, I had my hands like this around my neck, and I could just feel lumps, big, huge lump, like on this side. And I was like, that's weird. I called my mom and my grandmother right away. They're nurses, RNs, and they both were like, oh, you just, lymph nodes, they get swollen when you're sick. So I'm like, okay, I am an overthinker. So I was like, maybe not, but I just tried to listen to them, and I just went to the doctor. And luckily I had a doctor. I actually seen a PA, and she was right away like, let's get an ultrasound if this isn't gone next week. And I've learned since that a lot of people, the doctors push it off, push it off, push it off. It's normal to have big lymph nodes. It's normal. It's not a big deal. Take this steroid, give it time. And she right away was like, let's get an ultrasound if it's not gone in a week or two. So all through this time, I could feel like it's not right. Something's not right.
Your body was telling you, right, that there was something off?
I don't even know if it was my body. It was more like my spirit. I just knew it wasn't right. I almost was like kind of trying to prepare the people around me by being like, if it's not okay, then we'll still be okay, kind of thing. And also, but sometimes looking to them to tell me I'm wrong. Like, no, it is okay.
Is that something that you normally do?
Yeah, with certain people, like with my dad, with my mom, my aunt, who's also a spiritual leader for me. I'll call them and I'll be like, kind of like, can you tell me I'm gonna be okay? Not with indirectly, not really telling them I need that from them, but hoping that that's what they give me. And then I went to the ultrasound. We were actually going to Disney on Ice that day. My dad, my stepmom, my brothers, and I knew just from the ultrasound because the tech said, all right, I'm just going to go talk to the radiologist and make sure we have everything that we need. And I was like, they don't need to do that unless they feel like something's wrong.
Was this back when you went back the following week to get the results?
Yeah. So just from the ultrasound, then I had to go to Disney on Ice and act like everything was cool and kosher, even though I knew that it wasn't. I got the report pretty quickly after that I needed to see an oncologist. And from there, that's when like the real fear and anxiety kicked in. And that's when I really was like kind of losing it, like internally. I'm a mom. My daughter was 2.
Thinking the worst right away, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm like, and I'm somebody who Googles things like we were talking about.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I can't even, because I'll go crazy. And I was just like, what do I do if this is what they're basically implying? And so I kind of would have a breakdown, and then I would be like, no. And I would just pray and pray and pray and seek, I was like, okay, what have I been taught to do? Like all these years that I've been seeking out my own faith. What are the skills that I've retained or learned to use? And I just I had to go right into the Bible and just read and seek things that would give me peace. I still didn't get peace right away. It took time. I went to the oncologist. The oncologist said, okay, from here we do a biopsy. Even the oncologist like, maybe it's not. We'll do a biopsy and see. And so it's just a long process of waiting, weeks in between appointments. And opinions and my own thoughts and dealing with my family's thoughts. And um, I'm also a protector too. At the same time, I looked for them for strength, but then I kind of a source of strength to them. And I'm like, now I'm like, instead of asking them, like, is it going to be okay? I'm like, I have to tell them it's going to be okay because I don't want them to be scared. It's just it's an internal battle over what, like a month or two.
That was before the doctor.
How old
This
were
is
you
before
when
I
you found
even
out?
24.
So young.
Yeah.
I mean, to
This
think
is
like
before I even got a diagnosis.
yeah,
To
but to
all
think
this.
like that while when you're 24 years old is it's amazing.
Shows your
It
strength.
does. It shows your character. It shows your strength. That's incredible.
I think I'm this way because I have young. My parents were teenagers when they had me, and then I'm the oldest, and all of those things wrapped up created a mini adult. I've always been told I was just a mini adult, like an old soul, wise, like my dad said. Like, I don't know if it's a personality thing, if it's a gift, if it's learned behavior, but it's definitely a part of me. So then from there, the biopsy, I think 2 nights later, I got a phone call at like 7 o'clock at night, maybe later. The doctor didn't really ask what I was doing or anything. And I probably honestly wouldn't have been honest because I wanted the answer. So I probably wouldn't have been like, oh, I'm driving, don't tell me. But it is kind of crazy now that I think about it. But he was just like, oh, we got the results. And I was like, okay. And he's like, just straight, you have Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I was like, okay. So he's like, okay, so next is a PET scan. And that was just like the end of the phone
Did
call.
he say cancer or he said lymphoma?
Hodgkin's lymphoma is cancer.
Right. But
I
did
knew
you know that?
I knew that because when I had my first consult with him, when he said we're going to do the biopsy, he was like, most likely you have lymphoma, which is cancer. I knew that. He said, there's different types of lymphoma. There's non-Hodgkin's and there's Hodgkin's. So I knew that when he said Hodgkin's, which is actually the better of the two. So I was kind of happy about that, I guess, in a weird way. But yeah, driving with my 2-year-old in the car and my mother-in-law who doesn't speak English. And I just was like, it's cancer. And she understood that. And so now she's kind of losing it. And she's like, what stage? And, and I'm like, I don't even know. I didn't have much information, just that much. And I drop her off. And from there, I think I was calm at first, just saying it over and over and just calm.
Saying what over and over that
it's cancer.
Yeah.
It's to God.
Yeah.
Out loud though with my daughter's in the car, but she's 2. She's not, understanding. I think she might have been sleeping. And I'm just talking out loud to God, it's cancer, questioning it.
I know what you mean.
And then I was like, right away, I think I called my mom and I said, come to my house. I think I text you. I didn't even want to call you.
No, you called me.
No, you called me.
Oh, I called you back.
Mm-hmm. No, I texted you and said, come to my house. I think you just knew what that meant. We were waiting on results. So
you
everybody
you knew she was getting the results that day?
We knew they were coming.
Oh, yeah. Waiting.
And then I called my aunt, who's was my pastor, and I told her right away because everybody was waiting, and he called me, and I added him to the call, and I think at that moment I just was lost it, just screamed, no words. I don't think I really said words. I think I was just yelling. I think I was upset that I had to call them.
So your aunt was your pastor?
Mm-hmm.
What did she have to say when you told her?
When she answered the phone, she said, do you have good news for me? Because she was so sure.
She automatically, she was telling me.
Yeah.
She was sure.
Your aunt was sure?
Yeah. She's like, it's going to be okay. She said she had peace. God gave her peace. But sometimes we misunderstand what that peace from God means. It doesn't always mean the answer that you want. It just, like you said, a position of peace. So she had that. And so when I called, she's like, oh, you must have good news for me. And I was like, no, I don't. I don't have good news for you.
Can you break that down a little bit? What a position of peace means?
I didn't know what a position of peace was until this time. I mean, actually, okay, so I was struggling so bad with anxiety, This is probably a month and a half. I lost 30 pounds just because I couldn't eat.
Like right when you
sleep.
found out?
No, this is before I even knew.
Oh.
This is in between of the testing. Every test is like 2 weeks. So it's like ultrasound. 2 weeks later, I get in with the oncologist. 2 weeks later, I have a biopsy. Like it's like takes time to get from there might be something wrong to
Yeah.
a diagnosis. And then even once you get the biopsy and they can say, this is the cell we see, you have this, cancerous cell present, you still have to then do a PET scan for them to tell you how progressed the disease is.
Mhm.
So it's a long process.
So when you first found out, you you said you had throat pain?
No, I just had swollen lymph nodes in
Oh,
my
swollen lymph nodes.
near
That's
my clavicle.
That's so crazy because that happens, very often.
Yeah.
And you would never, but you kind of had a feeling right away that there was something going on.
And I didn't know if it was just me, like my anxiety telling me that, or if it was like intuition, if it was God preparing me. I wanted to believe it was just me being overthinking it or something, but I did have a feeling that something was wrong. The symptoms of this cancer is fatigue and night sweats or like rashes and some things that can be so common. I mean, I was a new mom. I worked full time. I have sensitive skin my whole life. So rashes or hives, that's so normal for me. I just felt
When she
like
was born, she was automatically went in the incubator because she was born sick.
Oh,
yeah, born with pneumonia. So I think it was actually like a running joke my whole life. Like Kaylyn's always sick.
yeah. So how long before they were swollen did you start feeling that fatigue? Were you feeling it?
I felt that way, but like I said,
You didn't
I had
put
a
it together.
daughter. I was in school before that, or I worked full time, or before I even had my, or I'm out with friends.
So
like
you
you're
just
living
contributed
life.
it to life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really didn't think much of it. But back to the position of peace.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
I had, like I said, this anxiety that took me over. Even in the process of praying and seeking, I still felt like this overwhelming anxiety that was like I couldn't eat, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't think. And it was like, but you still have to live life, right? Like you don't just stop living life because you might have cancer. So I'm still working. I'm still a mom. I'm still a daughter, a girlfriend at that time. I still had responsibilities. So I was struggling so bad. And I went to my aunt's house. She was gonna leave the next morning to go to South Carolina to see her girls. Her daughters live there. And I said I was so desperate for something to change. It couldn't be on what the test results were. It couldn't be. I couldn't wait for that to get this breakthrough of peace. I needed something immediately, and I didn't know I would receive it. But I went there. The Bible directs us. It says, go to your elders and ask them to pray for you with oil, and you will be made healthy, or you'll be healed. And I took that straight from the Bible, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I went to her. And I said, I need you to pray for me, and I need you to pray for me with oil, just because that's what I read. So I was like, that's what I need. And we talked, and then she prayed, and I literally was released from the feeling of anxiety. So I was given the feeling of peace.
What kind of oil? What does that mean?
It could really be anything, honestly.
Just like any,
if I had olive
like
oil,
literal oil.
Yeah, if
Gotcha.
I just read it and I was like, this is what I need.
Yeah.
So she prayed over me, and I was released. I had a feeling of peace in that moment, and I was able to eat for the first time in like 2 weeks. Like I went home and I felt okay, and I was like, you know what? No matter what, I have to be okay. I got the results after that, and I still then would have feelings of fear, but I had a position of peace because I felt it. It was spiritual. It was something that was given to me. It didn't depend on anything. It just depended on God and what he gave to me.
You're pretty much just letting him take over at that point.
Yeah, even if I tried to your brain still tries to take control, but it's like it almost is like a little reminder. Like your brain will, or like your spirit will remind your brain, like, no, you have a position of peace.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean everything was so peaceful or kosher through the experience, because it wasn't. But it's not always a feeling, but it's a position.
What was your feeling like when you got that phone call, when you were talking to her?
I said, I probably.
He said it's going to be okay.
I lied my butt off and said it's going to be okay. Because in that time, so that process is what brought me to understand a real position is not a feeling, right? So matter you're doing good, you're doing bad, you're going this way, you're going that way, up, down. You know that God is in control. So that's where the whole process brought me to the place of knowing that no matter what, live, die, you know, all the way to the end, I have to stand on the truth of God and that he's in control, that his ways are greater than my ways, his thoughts are higher than my thoughts, and that whatever way this thing goes, this thing called life goes, it's God's will. So I have to be okay with that. So that's the process that brought me to that understanding of a position more than a feeling, because it didn't feel good. And so obviously I'm a protector. You know, first thing is like, we're gonna be okay, Kaylin. We're gonna be okay. I hung up the phone and I lost
Yeah, I
it.
was
Man.
told later that he was like,
I lost it. It
yeah.
was uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Like, there was nothing I could do.
How do you deal with not like the frustration and not getting frustrated with? I can see a lot of times people like, why God? Like, why? Why us? Why me? Like, why is this happening? Like, how do you deal with that frustration and knowing like how can you put him in the driver's seat?
Well, that was the process. That's what I'm saying. You know, I like to pride myself on loving God and knowing things of God, right? But then it's like something, like I understand now, like I don't know anything, because I know what I know and I stand on what I stand on, which is the truth of the word of God. And if it says something different than I say, then I go with that. But in that process is where you find your position, and it's not always like, oh yeah, this is great. You know, God's in control, but it's like, it's almost like, oh, you're emptied out. You're emptied out, right? Because I remember at a certain point, I was like, if these doctors or these nurses or these people mess with my daughter, they're gonna pay, right? But then I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me? Like they're gonna take care of her. They're gonna love her. That's my daughter. You know, she's good. She's you know, here she's good. You know what I mean? Like she's respectable. So why would they? You know, so it's like I understood that that was the only way I could control something, right? Physically, because I was, you know, I trained and I learned how to fight and I know all these things about physical, you know, combat, whatever. So it was like I wanted to bring it so bad to a physical place when it was way out of my hands, way out of my control, and there was nothing I could do at that point. You know what I mean?
You said that you'll see something or you'll believe in something, but if you read something different, you'll go with that.
Yeah, so if I have an understanding, like they call it exegesis and eisegesis. Eisegesis is when you take scripture and you use it. Like you'll see a lot of pastors and preachers and teachers and people who will take things out of scripture without context and say, oh, this is what God wants, right? And use it for themselves for their own benefit. And then there's exegesis where you take out of scripture, like what was trying to be said, and even in their language, you know, at the time, what it meant. Like I said, when you're younger or less wise, you might take something and run with it saying, this is the truth. And then you find out like, oh man, when you're maybe an elder comes along or you go through a situation like this, and then it's like, wow, I was way off. You know what I mean?
That's where I struggle. It's like if you believe,
corrected.
if you believe in something, but someone's telling you that this is the right way to do it, it's not that way. That's where I'm like, well, what do you mean? This is the way to do it. But like we were just saying, it's because you believe in it, you may like stand on that and think that it's true 100%.
I think that God wants you to ask him why and ask questions. Because I think my earthly father would want me to ask him why and ask questions if it was something between me and him. For the sake of our relationship and for my understanding and for learning to move forward.
How else are you going to find out? How else are you going to know?
Some people are like, oh, don't question God.
Right.
I don't think I think he wants you to look to him and say, why is this happening? Sometimes I even actually in church this week, they were talking about different types of storms. Storms that we bring on ourselves, storms that are maybe happen because you're living outside of the will God has for you, and some that are within the will that God has for you. And sometimes that's hard for people to be like, well, why would God allow that?
Yeah.
Or why would God plan that? We're not exempt from anything in this earth that you might not want to experience. There's no difference between me and any person that goes through any tragic life experience where nobody's special, nobody's exempt. And if you're going to choose to believe in something because it's only makes you feel good, then you won't believe in it for long.
That's really powerful because there's a lot of things that make you feel good that are really bad for you.
Mm.
And just because they make you feel good doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do.
Right.
When was the decision that you made? Like, all right, I'm all in. Like, I want to give my life to God, and that's it.
I think for me, it's been multiple times. Like, I think in a younger stage, like, started to be like, this is true. This is not just a story that my mom and dad are telling me about. Like, I feel a connection to this. I feel like I have purpose in this. I know that there's a creator in all of this creation. So I think that was my first initial, like, okay, this is what I'm going to believe in. This is what I'm going to be committed to. And then you go through stages in life and, college, turning 20 in your 20s. And then I had a different maybe relationship or understanding, or maybe I lied to myself and said, this is okay. Like God still loves me, which he does, but doesn't always mean everything we're doing was okay. I think I became a mom, and then I was so amazed by the relationship and the creation of her that then I'm like feeling so connected to God again. And then I think my cancer experience was definitely what I call a snatching. Like, I feel like God snatched me up and was like, let's refocus.
Like a test?
Not a test, no. Like come back to reality almost. Like not even that I was so out of reality, but it was just like I was talking to my dad today about the difference between walking in your flesh and walking in your spirit. People maybe would be like, oh, you're in your flesh, and maybe they take that as, oh, you're out sinning, like you're committing some kind of crime or something like adultery or murder or robberies, and that's you walking in your flesh. But realistically, if you're just living and you're not experiencing anything outside of flesh, then that's walking in your flesh. And I felt like I was just living the same day every day. We all get wrapped up in the same cycle of life, like
Meaning like you weren't growing?
yeah, like I almost like, yeah, you feel stagnant.
Yeah.
I felt like, okay, this is just how life is supposed to feel. Like I'm supposed to get up, work, come home, take care of my daughter, go to sleep, do the same thing tomorrow. Even that's still my process today, but it doesn't feel the way it felt before.
Why is that?
Now I'm walking in my spirit. And not that it's not always easy, but it's like I feel a connection to something outside of myself. I see miracles and little things that people wouldn't be paying attention to because I'm open to it. I'm connected to my spirit. I'm connected to the Holy Spirit, more importantly, and I'm learning things on my drive, or I'm seeing things. Today I'm like looking at the clouds and I'm like, wow, like just driving. It makes life feel more full and more, you feel your purpose. We all struggle with what's my purpose, or I don't feel like I have a purpose. And that's because you're not connected to,
I think
your spirit.
Sheena can relate to that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She's always asking, like, what is our purpose? What are we doing?
I struggle with that all the time. When you're walking in your flesh, that's how you feel because you're just living the same day over and over, and you're just not experiencing anything outside of that.
I call it Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
It was a movie. You seen the movie? Remember that movie?
Groundhog's Day.
Man, I was living in that recently, and I was like,
You said something to me on the phone a couple weeks ago before the podcast.
like Groundhog Day.
No, it was when you were out in the woods and you saw death, and then you saw.
I changed my perspective.
But like that stuff.
All he did was walk into the woods.
I would never. I actually really took that and listened and paid attention to that, and I actually look at things a little bit different now because I'm looking for things like that now. But before, it's like I would have never thought about that in that type of
what's
way.
the next job? What's the next?
Money.
The gym. What's the next hour? What am I doing?
What's my next goal that I can
Sometimes
crush?
when you're in survival, it's what's in the next hour.
Yeah.
What's in the next moment? How am I going to get to later today?
Yeah.
And not on like a suicidal thing, but just on a like, what's going to happen between now and then?
There's so much on the plate.
Or
Yeah,
I just want to get through it.
You forget to kind of look at stuff like that, really, because you go through life, and I should be speaking about myself. Like every day, it's kind of like I wake up. There's an end goal. There's all these little side missions that I have in mind that I want to accomplish. And then it's the same thing. It's like we were having a conversation the other night. It's like something like we got to switch things up. I think that's why my brain always needs to be doing 100 different things, is because I'm never satisfied with the accomplishments that I made. I'm never satisfied.
You're trying to fill yourself up with something, but it's never going to fill you up.
Yeah.
Until you fill yourself with that one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Your relationship with God.
Yeah. it's been beating at my door for a long time, but and I don't even know what's stopping from taking that next thing. I told Todd straight up, I'm like, I wish I had that connection. I'm waiting for something. I don't know, but I'm waiting for some type of light to be like, this is it. Fine, I don't want
He
to
who
force it at the
seeks me
same time.
diligently shall find me.
Yeah.
You have to seek it diligently and you'll find it.
Is that forcing it?
No. Why would it be?
I don't know. That's the one thing I get not nervous about, but I don't want to force. I don't want to force it. I want it to happen organically. I want it to happen make no mistake. I
Yeah, but
believe in God.
what really happens organically in anything that you do? You're saying you'd spend so much time in a day completing all these tasks. That's not really organic. You didn't just wake up and it was done.
A lot of relationships happen organically. A lot of
no, they don't. You have to put work into every relationship you have.
Yeah, back end work. Like you're there for a reason. You're there. Something got you to that relationship. Something got you to that.
To the connection.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say hi. You can have, a high and by relationship with anybody, but you're not going to be connected to somebody unless you put the work in to be connected to them.
No, that's true. I mean, when we met, we wouldn't have met any other way. Like there was a reason why we were both there.
Yeah.
There was a reason why we were both mentally there. Like, not just physically, but we were both mentally there.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge. No, I mean, listen, we both believe in God. We both believe in a creator. We both believe in.
Yeah. So why not seek if you believe?
I don't know.
I ask.
It's.
I don't even believe in only seeking in the Bible because I think that God will reveal himself to you in his truth when you seek. So even if it takes, like he said, when he was in training school, that he looked into all types of religion and then he was brought to the place where the truth was revealed to him. Yeah. I don't think that there's anything wrong with doing that. If that's how you feel like you're going to get there organically, then that's fine.
So would you say so I'm the type of person where I pray very, maybe once a week. I said a prayer today. I said a prayer this morning. Last week I said a prayer. I said, give me whatever I can handle for the day. I say that a lot. I kind of go at it with an approach. Like I don't ask
the serenity prayer.
Yeah. I don't ask for anything. I ask for, give me whatever I can handle and I'll make it worth, my time or whatever.
Sometimes that's not even true in life though. I couldn't handle what I went through, but
yeah, well, you didn't ask for it.
No, but I mean, I think that we confuse ourselves when we say, oh, God only gives you what you can handle. What you can handle is only what you give to God. Then you can handle it. I gave it to God. I had to. And then I was able to handle it. If you felt like, oh, that day you had more than you could handle and that was because your prayer wasn't heard, that really wasn't the case.
How do you know when your prayer's heard? How do you know that it's...
Sometimes it takes a long time for you to know that your prayer was heard. It's not always instantaneous. I prayed even that day where I did get that instantaneous peace. I was so grateful for that. But there were so many times within this journey that I didn't get instantaneous peace or my prayer wasn't instantaneously heard.
So can we go back to when you found out and what the next steps were? You ended up calling your parents.
So my parents and my grandparents and my best friends showed up to my house that night. And I was like, it's so weird. It's like I wanted to hide from them. I knew I needed them, but I wanted to hide from them because I was like, how can I felt like I was doing something to them. I felt so guilty, that they were going to experience this rather than what I was going to experience. I apologized to my parents and I meant it. I was like, I'm so sorry that you have to go through this. And they were looking at me like, you're crazy. And I'm like,
yeah, no shit.
But I'm like, no, seriously, I am.
You are an old soul. It's incredible.
From there, it was just... we're all into dark humor. So we just kind of cried and then laughed. And it was it's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And that was the start of the journey. From there, I had to get the PET scan. And I got my staging on Valentine's Day, actually. So this started in December. I didn't get my staging until Valentine's Day. So I didn't even start chemo until, I think it was the last week of February.
How many months was that?
From early December to almost the end of February. So almost 3 months. This is just the process of finding out.
The PET scan was it's worst case scenario.
Yeah. So the results on Valentine's Day.
They told you it was this is as worst you can get.
So so they do the consult before again, and it's lymphoma. It's not staged usually 1, 2, 3, 4. It's more early stage, early unfavorable, and then it's late favorable, and then it's late unfavorable. So still 4 stages. It goes by how far has this progressed down your body, and is there bone involvement? And basically mine was progressed as far as it could be. It was throughout my whole
Is
body.
it because you didn't catch it in time, or is it that's just how
Yeah,
the
so
cookie crumbled?
I asked if, like, if he had a time range on how long. So now I'm like, geez, I maybe wasn't supposed to be this tired for these last few
Right, that's what I
years. Like, I
mean.
wasn't supposed to be this run down. I wasn't supposed to get sick as often as I did. Like,
But
because
would
my
they have
immune
even been able to find it anyway? Like if you went in there and was like,
I mean, it's so difficult because, like I said, the symptoms they would have brushed it off the
yeah,
same way I did.
because the only reason why they found it is because they said that
I had a lymph node.
Yeah, I bet you if you went in there with those symptoms, they would have said, "Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's life." Because it
Mhm.
happens often. I have something going on with my heart right now,
Yeah.
and they're just like, "Whatever,
We'll see
man.
you
Your
in
blood work's
December."
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you in December." And I'm
You
like,
know,
"I'm telling you,
Even
something's wrong."
Even blood work doesn't always show
Yeah.
signs of lymphoma.
Yeah.
So I had blood work. I mean, I had a pregnancy. I go to the doctor normally. Like, I had all the blood work done all through every year, and nothing. There was no huge red flags that something is really going on. So I asked him on a time frame, and he said there's really no way of knowing because everybody's body progresses differently. But I mean, if I think back to specific symptoms, I probably had it a few years at least.
Oh, really? You think that long?
Yeah, I think it probably started. It maybe didn't progress that quickly, like right away. And then once it started to spread, it probably spread faster. Even in that appointment, I was protected so many times by God and by the people around me that later I learned, like, okay, that probably would have made my experience worse. Like, the doctor didn't he didn't feel the need to get into every detail. Like, only what I needed to know. And also a lot of it's medical terminology, so I don't fully understand that. I could see, like, my mom and my grandmother really upset at some of these appointments, and I didn't know if it
I
was
remember
just
they
like,
didn't tell you certain
yeah, they
things.
wouldn't tell me certain things, and I thought maybe they were just upset because it's upsetting, but I think they had a greater understanding of what was really going on inside of my body. And then I later found out, like, oh, this was very serious. Like,
Were they doing that so you didn't like lose it?
yeah, I think it was a protection.
Yeah.
They were like, she knows what she needs to know. She
Oh,
knows when to show up for
that's
chemo.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it makes sense in a lot of ways, but it sounds kind of dishonest, I guess. But it's
No,
at the same
anytime I
time, it's
asked a
protecting
question,
you. So yeah,
any question I asked
so they
was
would have
answered
answered it.
directly.
Yeah.
I knew it was late stage. I knew it was through my body. But I was like, I didn't really ask, like, what does it mean that I have bone involvement? Like, or things like, he
I
didn't
think
really.
they wouldn't even tell me until
Yeah.
later on.
Wow. Were you asking questions or?
He
Yeah.
wasn't really.
Wow.
He didn't want to know that much.
I just knew what it was.
I would have been the same way, dude. I don't even know, man.
I tried to just automatically go with, this is just something we're gonna go through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I imagine that your mom, in a maternal way, was putting that cushion. Like, she knew the worst case scenario because
Right.
when you're in the medical field, you see the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But like her position of peace, she said, okay, she has the information that she is taking in right now. She'll receive this much information
Yeah.
and still stay positive in order to overcome cancer.
Mhm.
So, but her mother knew that maybe if she knew that this is actually, your chances are like 1 in, it made it lower,
So
it would
it's
make
more
you
like
feel more depressed.
with
Yeah.
lymphoma, what the type of lymphoma I had, it's more like, how far can treatment end up?
Actually help you.
No, so it's very your odds are very favorable with like becoming cancer free. It's very confusing to say because they say you're really not cancer free until 5 years of having no abnormal cells. But basically, so it's like an 80% chance that after 5 years, this cancer won't come back. So it's good odds, but it's more like the process of getting there. Like, the chemos that I took are some of the most intense, like, strong chemotherapies that wear you down. That itself could have
Killed you.
caused
from the
more issues than the
inside. Oh,
cancer.
man.
And then there's like autoimmune transplants and all those many things that it can turn into. It was more like those were their fears, that
Yeah.
could be more detrimental to my health or to my mental health than the cancer itself.
Yeah. And it's amazing that you even know that information and are able to just calmly dissect it, because it's true. Like,
Yeah. It's like I thought I was protecting them, but we were all like protecting each other in
Which
the
is
ways that we
nice.
could. It was
And
like,
look at the outcome.
yeah.
Because they had that protection. And even though somebody might not agree with somebody else in the family, like it takes a village to raise
Oh.
people. It takes a village to heal people.
Yeah.
And that's proof again that you had that network
Mhm.
of people that truly love you.
Yes.
And, it's not about them gaining anything. And through the power of all of you, we were able to heal.
Yeah.
But mostly you were the nucleus and you had to want to heal yourself as
Mm.
well. But it does say that in the Bible as well, heal thyself.
Mhm.
And that spells healthy. So if you just break it down in terms like that, we really do have power within ourselves to be our own doctors. And like for my grandfather, he just died a year ago actually, of lymphoma. And it went from nothing to all the way into his brain. And
Mhm.
but he still died like peacefully. He was still active until he could, and he lived his life. He was
Yeah.
almost 90 years old at that time. But my grandmother died a year before, so he was giving up
Ready.
because he
He's
Yeah.
like, I'm out of here.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you have a
Oh,
beautiful
my
2-year-old. My mom died when my youngest sister was 2. I was 15, and there was 2 others in between.
Yeah.
And my 2-year-old sister at the time, she doesn't have any memories of our mother.
Right.
So when you said that about your daughter being 2, that triggered my experience of us losing my mom when she was 36, and
Yeah.
my sister now in her 20s still doesn't have
Doesn't
her
know her.
own memories
Yeah,
of a
that
woman
was
I
like
do.
a huge fear for me.
Yeah.
It was like, is this going to traumatize her?
Right.
Am I going to be present for her? Like 2 years old, like she was learning how to talk. Like
I
so much happens
know.
from 2 to 3. Even I look at her and I'm like, I don't even know how this happened this fast.
Well,
So
she's a
for me to
superstar
not
now.
be
How old is she now?
present, she just turned 4. So for me to not
She's
be present, I
hilarious.
was so scared of that. Like I was like, how am I going to feel? Am I going to be able to get up and be around her? Am I going to be able to take her out and, be there with her? And I mean, God was so good to me because I feel like I had never had more time and more experience and I was never more present.
That's a really, really positive way to look at
Right.
it.
Because, before that, you're in the cycle of life. Like I was saying, just living. And I was just working and surviving and making sure she was good. I mean, I still have so many, of course, I was grateful for that time I was connected and, we love each other, but I think I was awoken spiritually and I was just like, I'm going to be all in.
So during chemo, during the treatment, were you still working? Were you still kind of living your life the way you were living it?
No, I'm super blessed. I was working for my family's business, so they let me do a lot of work from home. And they really relieved me of a lot of responsibility through that time. Before that, I was like, how did I end up here? Not in a negative way. I'm so grateful for my family and their business, but I was just like, I went to school for psychology and then I was working like in the office and I was kind of feeling like, what am I doing? Now I know that God put me there so that I could be secure financially even through this journey that I ended up going through. And I'm so grateful for that. I mean,
So they allowed you to work from home. How was that during that whole process of doing chemo? And like, is it a painful process? And
yes.
how often did you have to do it?
So I went every other week, every other Monday. Very painful. I mean, side effects are bone pain. And I literally felt like an old person. Like my body just didn't function the way it did. And the more chemo you do, the worse your body feels.
So chemo is just introducing basically a poison to your body
Yes.
that kills the cancer cells.
It kills everything, all your cells.
So not only the cancer cells,
The good cells too.
which gives you tremendous side effects.
So after my first chemo, I was supposed to go. So they put this like little medicine thing on my arm that was supposed to like give me a shot of something the next day. Come to find out, it failed and it didn't give me the medication the next day. So I went in for my blood work at the end of the week and I had like no white blood cells, no like healthy cells at all. So I was like basically had no immune system.
She could have caught a cold and died.
Yeah. So it was like super extreme. Even in that, they protected me because they were like, okay, so yeah, you can't like leave your house and you can't be around anybody. And I was like, oh, okay. And then later, like they were like, okay, now we're out of the woods. And I was like, oh, we were in woods. I didn't know that. Like, okay. I mean, my mom knew. And
we had a joke. I was like, is it like Lincoln Woods?
Yeah, like what kind of woods?
Big forest.
Right.
Were we in the jungle or were we in the city?
So after that, they never trusted that little contraption on my arm, and I had to go in to the doctor's office the day after chemo every time, which is so exhausting because when you first get the chemo, you really don't feel it that much. It's more like as the days go on, it hits you.
Mess with sleep? Does it mess with like everything? Your entire
It does. It messes with everything. I mean, it definitely is a progressive situation. Like there were some times where like I would feel completely fine. And I even like took a little trip to New York with my friends on one weekend, or I would take my daughter places and I would feel like good and normal. And then it would just like progress. I started to have to slow down a lot more. I think when people see me, they see what they see right now. I always present myself the same way. By the end, I think everybody was just like, yes, it's the end and she's great. And I was like, oh, this is actually the hardest part. Physically, mentally, I kind of let my survival guard down, and I really was able to now reflect what just happened. And so it was hard for me at that point too. Like, it's not like so simple, and it's not black and white. Like it wasn't always like this amazing spiritual journey and like the physical didn't matter, or vice versa. Like sometimes I felt great physically and down spiritually. Sometimes I felt horrible physically and I felt more alive spiritually than ever. So it was a cycle of things that I had to get through to get to where I am now.
Yeah, you seem like the type of person where no matter what's bothering you, you just work through it and put your head down, and very stoic.
Yeah.
And where do you think you got that from?
Like I said, I think my parents, I think being the oldest sibling, I take that like, that responsibility very seriously. I'm like, they make fun of me like I'm their mom, and I just think my personality, I think the way God created me, I don't know, I'm just this person.
When you got through the chemo, was there any other process between the chemo and after you found out that things were kind of in the clear that you had to go through? Or was it kind of just like you were doing your chemo and then you started getting better news, you started feeling better? Like, how did that work?
I went through chemo. I actually, like, I think halfway through, I had a PET scan and they told me, like, I was clear of cancer, but you still have to finish chemo. So that was great. That was a high, of course. Like, it's gone. But realistically, it was the chemotherapy that was the hardest part on me. I mean, you look in the mirror and you don't really recognize yourself. So there's that. And then it's like walking up the stairs and you can barely do that. I mean, my mom had to shower me and I was 25. Wow. I turned 25 in the middle of this. So 24 and 25, my mom had to help me in the bathroom. Like it's hard when you're somebody like me who's presenting myself the way I do. Like it's hard for me to be like, I need you to bring me up the stairs and help me bathe.
Did you live with her at the time?
No, but she always was with me. I lived 10 minutes away from her, so she stayed with me a lot. I also have this whole other part that before I even started chemo, I did fertility treatments to preserve my fertility so that was like a whole process within finding out that I had cancer. I mean, I was blessed, and a lot of people donated to a GoFundMe, and that was covered because that was all out of pocket.
A lot of times you can't get pregnant after chemo.
Oh, so you were thinking ahead of time.
Yeah. Right away, because of my age, they were like, oh, you should go see a fertility specialist.
Yeah. So what do you think what did you take from that whole experience?
Don't take 1 minute, 1 day lightly for granted. The whole, not just only living in my flesh, but living in my spirit, staying connected to God and the Holy Spirit so I can live and feel the fullness of life. And it was like, I didn't want to miss whatever God had for me in that. Like, I took that as like, there's something here. I'm going to go through this and I don't want to go through it for nothing. Because sometimes people have very life-changing experiences and you'll see them and they're like, what did you learn? It doesn't seem like anything changed. It doesn't seem like you learned anything. It doesn't seem like you changed any of your behaviors. And I was like, I'm not going through all this just to be the same person at the end.
You know, it's funny how two people could have great different perspectives. She was talking about that night at Disney on Ice. It's probably one of my like top 10 memories in my life.
It's funny. I was just going to ask.
The whole time she's like
struggling internally.
And I'm like, wow, this is so great. I wasn't even watching what was going on. I was just watching my family. Because it was like I never experienced things like that growing up. And it was like, this is, and I didn't even know it was going to be that.
Yeah.
Until I showed up and I was like, and I just was like, this is incredible. All my kids are here. My granddaughter's here.
Yeah, and she loved
and my
it so
wife,
much.
And
She
it's
had
like,
so much
wow,
fun.
this is so, I even had one of my nieces with me. It was,
Mhm.
and then she's struggling the whole time.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty sneaky though.
No, it shows a lot about your character and
yeah.
just how you were brought up. What's one of the most memorable moments of your father that you have growing up
Like
that
in
really made an
childhood?
impact on you? Yeah.
I think it was watching his career in MMA and just seeing like the full dedication. Like I've always been really proud of that in him. I mean, and like I feel like I struggle with that, like the self-discipline. Like I struggle so hard. I'll like get interested in something and then I'm interested in something else and then I'm doing something else. And I think watching him and changing his whole, life to get to that place. I mean, and I was so proud. Like my friends from elementary school talk about it to this day. Like,
Yeah.
you always talked about your dad. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I was proud that he was my dad.
A lot of my career, I was hoping, it was like, I was selfish before my career. I know it now. I didn't realize it before, but ever since she was born and TJ was born, and it was like, I did the wrong things for the right reasons, thinking I would give them something I didn't have. But at the same time, I was being selfish in it, like moving how I wanted to move instead of moving how I should have been moving. And then with the MMA career, it was like, it started out as like, just testing myself. But then when I seen people on TV that I knew that were making decent money, I was like, whoa, maybe I could potentially like get to that place, and I was close. And then I didn't even realize in the process, I made a lot of connections and a lot of things like that. But I did understand that I took a lot of time away from them.
Yeah.
And I understood that,
Well, would you have changed things? Would you have changed it if you could?
I mean, I answered that before. You can't really change things because a lot of great things, like, what if I changed one thing and she doesn't date the boy who she dates and doesn't have the granddaughter that I have?
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I wouldn't mess with that. You know what I mean? But if I could tell my younger self to pay attention earlier, I would have said that. Pay attention.
Yeah, a lot of time with dad was spent in the gym, like for being a teacher.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that those are some of your best memories, though.
Yeah, like we would just play, goof around.
Fights too.
Like
watching fights.
Yeah.
I used to bring her to the local fights. And
yeah.
she'd be like,
yeah. We loved it.
That's such a unique experience. Like I wish that my father did something that I could look up to him for. Like I wish that something in his life I could be like, that's my dad. You know what I mean? No matter how much time he tried to spend, which was, that's a special thing to have.
Oh yeah.
Being able to say like, that's my dad. And I look at that a lot with my son. It's like, I need to, going back to like why we do the things we do sometimes, it's a lot of them is to make the people around me proud and to make
an impact on them.
and have an impact on their life. There was a situation that happened with my son that really made me flip the switch, when I was going through some personal things. And if that hadn't happened, I don't know if I would have like buckled down, got disciplined, and made a decision to change my life. Because I thought about it. I need to make him proud. I need to leave him with something would ever happen. Like at least he could say like, I enjoyed those moments. Those moments were big. All right, let's take a quick commercial break to bring you our sponsor, Burns Roofing. I've been personal friends with Eric for over 20 years. He's an incredible stand-up businessman. And if you ever need anything regarding roofing in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, give them a call. They do honest, hard work, and he is my go-to whenever I need anything in roofing needs. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Pro Landscaping, Rhode Island's trusted partner in creating beautiful, functional outdoor spaces. From detailed lawn care to full-scale landscape design and hardscape installations, they bring expertise and a commitment to excellence to every project. If you're looking to elevate your property with skilled, reliable professionals, Pro Landscaping is here to make it happen. Before we went live, we were talking about how people can get caught up in conspiracies and go down those rabbit holes. And you made a really good point in saying, they may not be conspiracies if that, I said a lot of people are full of shit.
oh, it's still a conspiracy. They just believe what they're saying.
Right.
So if it's not it wouldn't really be a conspiracy if people didn't fully believe in and be invested in it, right?
A lot of people, yeah. So like a lot, if a lot of people are invested, like the flat Earth thing, I think that's the most ridiculous topic. I think it's absolutely nuts. I can't believe that people really think that the Earth's
I think
flat.
the Earth could be flat.
But how? There's
I do.
there
Here we
is.
go. Let's go.
But I'm just saying, Ash, just Google really quick and Google Earth from space, satellite image from space.
I don't
trust
that.
I don't, but I trust some of the video. Like there's some
don't
things that I
trust
see
it.
where I'm like, a
No.
lot of those are actually all fake. That's the
thing.
problem.
I
That's the
don't-
problem, and that's where a lot of these people can go
So,
off on these things.
When
It's
I
like,
was in high school, I actually kind of had a debate with somebody in class that was saying that we have never been to the moon. And I was all like, why do you even want to question your country, right? So that was the stance I took. It was like, why do people want to be so difficult, basically? And now I'm like on the whole other end is I don't trust anything that they say or any information or proof that they provide for us because I mean, they have been caught in so many lies.
know.
Do you think that we've been to the moon? Because now that I'm
no,
like,
no,
yeah.
no.
So
No, and you're right. You're
So
completely.
people would call you ridiculous for that.
I know that.
yeah.
They would call
Well, here's
you
the
a
thing.
conspiracy.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. There is going back to being. There's a lot of people who put out a lot of bogus information,
Mhm.
and that can sway your opinion to think that everything is.
I'm not
But
saying
not-
the Earth is
That's
definitely
my
flat,
point.
but what
But
I'm saying
not
is
everything is bogus. Not everything
Right.
is
not everything.
is crap. And that's where me and you kind of, see things differently. It's like you and I support you 100% with everything. So, but I love having these conversations with you because not everything is CERN.
Right.
Not everything is a conspiracy and not everything is fake.
But why go to bat for it if you're not sure?
It's not that I go to bat for it. It's that I just
No, I'm
leave
saying
it
like
open.
even if she doesn't support some of the things that maybe you do really believe, if she's like, it could be untrue. Like, why should she support it if she really doesn't know? You know?
Can we even just point out that he brought up NASA and we all believe in NASA.
Mhm.
But if you look into it even deeper, NASA, well, a lot of our language stems from Hebrew language.
Right.
NASA in Hebrew means to deceive.
Yeah,
See?
exactly.
I know.
All you
There's
have to do,
trust me.
I'm
have to,
so
like,
passionate
just do
about
a
what I
tiny
believe
bit of
in because
research.
I've done the research. I'm past the point of doing the research,
Yeah.
which got me to this point where I am a believer of this and that.
Right.
So I'm quiet about a lot of things actually because
Because
I
it's
already
so
know-
controversial.
I know people look at the way, but I was 33 when I came back to God and came back to being spiritual because
Mhm.
I grew up very religious as
Mhm.
Grew up a
Jehovah's
Jehovah's
Witness.
Witness.
And I went as
You
a
can ask
Jehovah's
her.
Witness, like I went through sexual trauma and stuff that shouldn't be happening if you are in a community of God followers. So after my mom died when I was 15, I was like, why God? Why would you leave me to the wolves even more? She was
Right.
my only protection and that wasn't even there.
Right.
So I turned my back for many, many years. And it wasn't until I was 33, I was in the middle of a desert in California at the highest elevation that really you're connected to earth, whether you want to be or not.
Mhm.
You can feel the vibrations of earth in California on certain points. And it's amazing. It's incredible. And it just turned my brain on.
Yeah.
And from that point, I was researching things I didn't want to research.
That was her organic moment.
That's
That was
crazy
my
how something like that though
was
can
my
turn it on,
organic
yeah.
moment.
Yes.
And everybody was looking at me like I had lost my nuggets. Like
Nope.
she's
You
not
found them.
coming back. I took TV away from my children for a year and a half and they're still traumatized by that because I was like, turn it off, give me your cell
I
phones,
had
give
that
me
moment.
everything.
Yeah.
Like
I
it,
had that.
and it's
You do have to
But
be you
you
have to be
do.
careful with balance, especially with
Yeah.
children, because then they might turn away
Yeah,
from
because
you.
at the
but-
end of
Yeah.
the day, it's an opinion.
It
doesn't
is.
it's not fact because we don't even know if it's fact.
It's an opinion, but you connect the dots of all the opinions that you like. I grew up reading the Bible 5 days a week. We had to go to church 3 days. We had to go door to door those other 2 days on the weekends.
Yeah.
Like the Bible was how we lived.
Yeah.
So a lot of
It's
the
just,
things that
it wasn't the Bible though.
no, because Jehovah's Witnesses, they made their own Bible.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so I didn't even believe that, but they're still following some of the stories, because a lot of religions
the foundation
have,
the foundation is there, but the interpretation, which is eisegesis, is how that got misconstrued and the whole religion got started in 1950,
right after the World War, after Hitler's war, because that's when it branched off. But what made me question, and I was a child, but what made me question was like, how do all of these other religions believe that Jesus died on a cross, and the one true religion that we're in as Jehovah's Witnesses, he died on a stake? Like, obviously that was a change of story across the board.
Mm-hmm.
No one else says that Jesus died on a stake.
Because there's history of how the Romans used to put people on crosses.
Right.
That's where it comes from. So,
but Jehovah's Witnesses recreated their testament of their perception.
So that's what I always say. It's left up for, like, if I'm, like I always say, if I'm the devil, right? I know from thousands of years ago till now, after I was shot down, and then how do you, it's easy to manipulate people, right? So now you put a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. So that's why I try to tell everybody, read for yourself. You know what I mean?
Especially with language.
And then
the spell.
And nowadays they make it easy with like the Blue Letter Bible app and things like that, where you can actually see the translation from Hebrew or Greek. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of translation, man.
No, but this is what I'm saying. You can get the first translation, which is in Hebrew from the Old Testament, and then the first translation, which is Greek in the New Testament. And you can, it's so, the stuff we're afforded now, but we just leave it up to, oh, he said this, he said that. We take a little bit of information and we go, God's not real, or Jesus' name is Yeshua, so you don't even call him by his name. The J wasn't, they get into these big debates, right? And God said, you know, when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, he said, you're so concerned about, you know, what goes into the body, but you take something that's clean and you put it in something that's filthy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Didn't God make what's clean? Didn't God what made on the outside and on the inside? Right? So where's the love and the compassion and the faithfulness and the faith? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what, now all the manipulation comes in, right? So let's focus on all these little details when Jesus said it wasn't even that deep, right? Don't eat this and don't eat that because you could get sick.
People can take something small and try to blow it up.
Oh, you eat pig, you're gonna go to hell. It's not what goes into the mouth, but what comes out, because what comes out comes from the heart.
Say that again. So what goes into the mouth?
It's so they talk about, you know, it's sinful to eat pork, or it's sinful to eat shellfish, or it's sinful to eat this. And Jesus corrected it, right? Because in the Old Testament, they were very lawful.
Yeah.
But what about the law of love? You know, that Jesus said, what about the law of love and compassion and faith? You know what I'm saying? So they would be very like lawful, and the Pharisees, and they would teach, you know, you got to follow the law of Moses. You got to follow the law of Moses, right? And so now they were so hard on that, but then they were giving out scraps, right? They were getting all this money and living in the synagogues and living in the most high places, and you know, you see it today with some of these pastors and preachers. They live in these $1 million mansions, but they teach the law. You know what I'm saying? So where's the love, though? So Jesus said it's not what goes into the mouth.
Okay, I get it.
But what comes out, because what comes out comes from the heart.
It's what are
you saying?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Who are you helping?
What do you guys think of that pastor, Kenneth Copeland? Ash, can you pull up Kenneth Copeland, pastor? I want you guys' honest opinion. This is what I'm talking about. Some guys are full of shit. Go on YouTube and put in the most recent Kenneth Copeland demonic speech. I want you guys to listen to this.
This covenant of blood. What blood? The blood of this covenant, glory to God. Cut the covenant with his father God.
Glory.
Yes, like Moses of old. They're coming one. Don't ever do it. Don't ever feel sorry for yourself. Don't ever do it. Absolutely stunning. delicious.
Well, this is kind of manipulation. They're just taking big bits and pieces.
Moses, and he'll live 120 years. And he said, yeah. Preach it, brother, preach it, brother.
This is what I'm saying. This is what they call eisegesis. It's eisegesis. They're taking things out of context. You don't know why he was saying those things.
I'm not even really listening to what
his
he's
message is off.
Me?
Yeah.
It's in his eyes, it's in his mouth, it's in his everything about
Look at him. Look at his.
To me, if I was just to say, what does Satan look like in
He's
his
my
flesh?
blood
This is
brother.
Well, it's just you can only hide it for so long.
So is it a possibility that
okay, can we please turn
is
this
it a
off?
possibility that a person like that can get hijacked from the devil and be spreading? You can shut it off, Ash. And be spreading a message that that is not supposed to be the message that we're all supposed to be hearing.
That's like 90% of pastors.
Really?
Yes.
But there's different energies with pastors. I've been to, like, after boot camp, I went to a couple of churches because that was still in my phase. I was 22. I just turned 23 in boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
So I still was not living with the belief in God anymore. So my roommate, she was Black, and that was my first experience with Black people, even though that's part of my DNA. My father's Black and Spanish. She's like, honey, I got to teach you about Black people. So she brought me to her church, and their pastor was extremely animated with, like, gave a lot. People were crying, people were falling, and you could feel that energy, but he wasn't giving a negative energy like that. So there's different types of preaching.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
I don't think it's the animation. I mean, with him, it didn't. That was not giving loving. It wasn't giving inviting. It wasn't.
Oh, and he's making
giving anything that Jesus gave.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, and there's a leader for every person. We don't, I mean, except for Jesus, we don't all have the same earthly shepherd. I was just having this conversation, I think, with you, right? That there are different leaders and pastors for different people. And sometimes it's seasonal too. Like, you might in one season really receive from a certain shepherd, and then you'll change and then you'll receive from somewhere else, and you'll feel that, I think. But I mean, there's so much money in Christianity, and
I mean, he's a billionaire. He's a billionaire. He's got like 3 jets.
I mean, the Joel Osteen, Michael Todd's a big one right now, and it's sad, honestly, what they do the word.
It gives it a bad rap.
That's why I tell people, like, your experience with people and your experience with church shouldn't affect your relationship with God, right? So, and if it does, it's because you haven't had your own relationship with God. And I understand church hurt and why it would affect you. Don't let it be your final say of your relationship. And
because then the devil wins.
Yeah. Right. Because it is manipulation.
Growing up in a church with a faulty leader that takes all that and uses it for his benefit, right? It's like, the devil slips right in if you allow him. So whoever that person was, he may have seen a chink in the armor. He may have seen something, and he's operating under these false pretenses. But it's like me and my friend was talking about it. It's like you allow the devil in by letting sin become full grown inside you, right? So then you become almost like an ambassador for the devil. Whether you say this or say that, you take a little bit of truth, mix it up, with a lie, and then it's manipulation, and then you use it to benefit you in a way. So we were talking about celebrities. He was saying, well, do they actually sign a contract and sell their soul? And I'm like, it's more like they became full grown in their sin. So like they sold their soul to the devil, because basically
there's no limit.
We stand before God, and you go down or you go up, right? As they say, or out, whatever. But so you almost sell your soul by being full grown. Like when we was coming up at a younger age, you start, like I talked to him. I said, we had this conversation when we were probably 15, 16. We bought some drugs together. He took half, and we were selling them. And I was like, yo, Fran, you know what we got to do? We got to sell this, get more, get bigger, but then we'll probably have to get guns. And then we can't let no one rob us or punk us off. So if we have to, we might have to kill people. You know, so you almost got to become a killer, or you do have to become a killer in a certain sense, especially to sell drugs to people that they could die off it or destroy their lives. You know what I mean? So you almost, in that sense, you see people in the industry, you know, want to become rich and famous so bad that they give themselves over to that, and now they sear their conscience and they're on the other side and there's no coming back.
Yeah, it's so
except
crazy.
through Christ.
You see people try to come back too, like MGK.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who get their like they have these tattoos, and then, you know, years later, like Machine Gun Kelly, he blacked himself out. He covered all of that stuff, and now he's preaching about God. And
oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So we're all
MGK's new
created
tattoos.
in the image of God, right? So God created us in his image, and then he breathed his breath into us. So it becomes really easy for us to try to be our own God. I mean, we all struggle with the need or want of power. And when you get a taste of it, if you become so, you know, in love with that, you'll keep going and going and going.
It's that thirst. It's that. Yeah,
because we're made in that image of a creator.
Yeah.
And so now we want to be in control and create our own life and our own paths and our own things around us. That's why it's so important. What the Bible speaks on pride and humility, like pride comes before the fall, because it's so easy for us to get wrapped up in that.
Yeah, it is. You see it all the time. Like going back to the celebrities, and like you can see when they cross that path. It's almost like they do sign a contract where they're like, okay, we own you now. Mm-hmm. You need to do this, this, and that. And then they start coming out with crazy music that has an agenda towards certain things. Mm-hmm. All that stuff, that is like stuff that is 100%. You can see right through it. Yeah. It's like, I don't know who they're trying to fool, but we can all see that they're pushing pills. They're pushing the devil. They're trying to get rid of Christianity. They're pushing this trans movement. Like all of this stuff is definitely being pushed through our music.
And then as soon as they say that was all demonic and now they live for Christ, everybody goes, they're crazy.
Yeah, no, I know. They're done with it.
But they weren't crazy before.
You're so right. And it's like you see them change. Like you see them.
They call it like religious psychosis.
Yeah.
If you believe in something good and positive, you're now under some kind of psychosis. Rather than you were under a psychosis when you were pushing
isn't that
evil.
Strange?
It's strange that people that believe in certain things are called conspiracy theorists. It's the same thing. Like people can see something in plain sight and still go back to ignorance is bliss. Yeah. And that's the duality between what is actually, we don't know who's telling the truth, but there's two sides to every story. Mm-hmm. So there's truth all in between. It's a spectrum of you know, what is actually real. So we have to take it with a grain of salt and figure it out what resonates within your own soul and what is right. And
that's why it's important to have your own relationship.
Yeah.
Because even with the political stuff, like I feel like it's all, I mean, God allows it, but the devil is playing all his great games and tricks. And I mean, even the way it's given to us, the verbiage they use and the language and the way it's presented, like, oh, women's health care or taking away women's health care. And that's a fear tactic to use so that you'll vote a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
And
it's manipulation at its finest.
Yes.
What do you think of evolution?
Don't believe in evolution.
So how?
I mean, I think that things evolve, but not in the way that Darwinism tells us.
So you don't think that there's zero chance that we came from a primate?
Zero.
That's a tough one that I battle with, because it just seems there's so many similarities.
If we have the same creator, then it's really not that
But
difficult.
does it mean if we have the same creator, does it mean that even if we did, it happened for a reason, like it was supposed to happen?
Well, evolution?
Yeah.
Sure, if the Bible didn't say that God created man and woman in his image, just like that. If it said God created monkeys and then they evolved into man and woman, then I would say, yes, evolution is real. I believe God can do whatever he wants, however he wanted to do it. And I mean, he's done it so perfectly. I mean, it's down to any organism, any ecosystem, any, you know, the cells, the way the organs work. I mean, like even when I came into motherhood, learning about breastfeeding, I was like, wow, like your child's saliva will tell your breast what kind of antibodies they need to heal them from an illness that they may have.
It's unbelievable.
Like nobody can convince me that there isn't a creator, because how does everything work so perfectly?
So like the way we eat, the way we used to, the hunter gatherers, the like coming from a Neanderthal, do you think that's at all any? Because a Neanderthal is kind of in between.
It talks about
an ape and a human.
What is it in the Bible?
A Nephilim.
A Nephilim.
So Nephilims are giants, correct?
They were like bigger, like human-like, but not human beings.
But so where did they evolve from? Like, how do you think that? How do you think they're extinct? How do you think they evolved?
I mean, it talks about how they went extinct in the Bible, and I think they came from human and angels.
They came from fallen angels.
Yeah.
They seen that the humans, the daughters of man, they would say, were beautiful, so they procreated with them for trading secrets of heaven, like eyelashes and makeup and weapons of war and the sun, moon, and stars, like where you get the astrology from. So these are all heavenly things that they traded, but
I love
so
that.
now
I think that's so cool.
But what happened was they were big and actually the fallen angels, so they had sex with the daughters of man, and then Nephilims were born, but the Nephilims were like giants.
Yeah.
They started eating and eating and eating, and soon they were eating people because they were running out of things to eat.
Yeah.
And then that was in the time of like Noah, so God seen what was going on the earth, and he was like, let's wipe that out.
Do you think it was just a bad things just went bad?
So God allows things because we have free will.
The natural cycle,
but
like he lets
if it wasn't what he wanted or intended, he will take care of that, and that's what happened.
So, do you think like natural disasters now today have anything to do with that? Like certain areas maybe that they need to be cleaned out, or there's certain
maybe, but not necessarily.
Yeah,
I think that we've brought as humans, and even if you don't believe in God, people will say we've brought on so much destruction and disaster into the world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have to believe in Jesus to know that.
Well, just the thought that we can press a button and like literally dismantle this earth.
That, and also just the waste
crazy.
systems that we have, the greed that we pour out into the world, the chemicals and the climate changes and all that stuff. Like, we're destroying this earth, and then we get sick or we have natural disasters or some kind of traumatic event happens and we want to blame God right away, but there's no accountability in that.
True. Yeah. But people go right to that. Like, well, why would God
If
allow
God
this?
is
If there
good,
was a
why
God,
would he
if
allow
there was a
this?
God, why would he allow this?
Did you see the thing with Richard Pryor?
No.
He did like it was supposed to be a comedy special, and he walks out on stage and if he's God, and he goes, "Anybody see my son? Anybody see my son?" They're looking around, they're all smiling, and he goes, "Where is he? Where is he? My blameless son, where is he?" And then he was like, "What? You killed him? You killed my son? Why would you do that?" And then he goes, "Well, I want to talk to Martin Luther King about that." And he goes, "What? You killed him too?" Then he goes, "I want to talk to John F. Kennedy about that."
Shit.
He goes, "What? You killed him too?"
Oh.
And he's like, "You're going to have to deal with this." And he
Yeah.
turned around and walked off.
I mean, do we not understand natural consequences?
I know. It just it just feels like it happens.
And then there's the
so
conversation
much.
of how can a good God be good if he's not just? Could a good judge be a good judge if he's not just?
Yeah, no, I don't think I have any doubt. Like, I think things need to be taken care of if they need to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Like, if there's some shit going on, you know what I mean?
But who's the judge of what
like
needs to
shit
be
like that.
taken care of? That's where the
what-
problem lies. Man thinks they know what's best.
But it's
Right.
that gut feeling that most people have of right and wrong. That's how I look at it. It's like,
We cannot rely on the gut feeling of people.
follow you.
Not
The heart
not
leads to
everybody.
destruction. It
well,
says
like we all know pedophilia is wrong. Right?
Yeah,
No,
I
there
mean, I know
are
that.
communities of people that are
Muslims
saying
don't
that's
know
a
that.
sexuality, and they want to
That's-
add it to
crazy.
the.
That's a mess
Yes.
right now.
That's crazy.
there-
Muslims don't know pedophilia is wrong. They say that was how it was like that back in that time.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Muhammad
insane.
married a 6-year-old and then had sex with her when she was 9.
Mhm.
Was that right or wrong? Because if you ask a Muslim, they'll say
Feels
they
pretty
used
wrong.
to do that back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I'm
They-
saying
they
now
truly
there
believe
are
that.
communities of people that are saying that pedophilia is a sexuality.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I
it's a
know.
preference.
There's states trying to
So,
legalize.
yeah,
So
there-
who's the
there's-
judge of right or wrong?
Right. I mean, are things that
The masses.
20 years ago would have, even just 20 years ago, but 100 years ago that were so wrong. I mean, even if we go back to slavery, which we all can agree now is wrong, but back then who decided that a black person was only 1/3 human? If we trusted
I
the
think
gut
that
of
was
people,
a strictly profitable. I think that was a profit move.
and that's the gut of humans.
Yeah.
Whatever is profitable for them.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
how
greed.
actually I read today
Greed.
in my psychology book about addiction is the opioid epidemic started right after slavery ended because
Jim Crow laws
society
and all that.
was worried about what they were going to do financially.
Wait, I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that
didn't
either.
either until I read it today, and I was like, that makes so much sense. So slavery, everyone's free all of a sudden, no one's working, but the profits being lost in the people that are governing slavery and those in that area.
Mm.
But so what happened then is Big Pharma stepped in and started making opiates of
That could be
financial gain.
That's not all they did, though.
That's not all they did.
They made the Jim Crow laws because when they never abolished slavery. Slavery's till this day.
Yeah,
So if you're a
prisons.
prisoner, you're a slave to the state.
Absolutely.
So now in that, they made all these laws where they would be like, oh, you can't drink from that bubbler. You can't do this. You can't do that. Like all these stupid things. And they would throw people in prison for that. But that's the evolution I believe in, right? So now from,
Right.
you can bring that all the way back to Jesus, not the slavery, but you can, the way that the attack and all these things. So now the slavery in itself, bringing all these people here, which they bought off their own people, they get, the whole thing is misinterpreted.
Yeah,
like
true.
you're not going to show up on the land with 6 little white guys or on a ship and say, and they're going to just take them
they're
guys
gonna give
over
you
there.
people.
No, they traded them. So they were indentured servants where they were supposed to work off a debt, but then, greed and money power. So they seen that. And then what they did was they tricked the foolish people, right? The foolish white man. They said, you're better than, so this is the rich so-called black man, and this is the poor so-called white man. You're better than him, no matter if he's richer than you or not. So they take him, they put him into slavery, and they put him in charge of him. And he's like, I'm better than you just because I'm white and you're black. So now progression, Jim Crow laws, right? Evolution. This is the evolution I believe in. So now we go, take my grandfather, for example. He's a Cape Verdean man, which was slave trade islands. They came over here. He goes off to Korea, fights in a war. His whole platoon's wiped out, but he survives. He comes back. He's outside having a beer. He's a dark-skinned man. They're like, oh, N-word for whatever purposes, get inside. And he's like, well, I just fought for this country, this and that. So now he's messed up. You know what he does? I'm going to, all the white women in this country, get them pregnant. But now this happens. My father is born. His mother leaves him at the hospital because he's with a, because her family was going to disown her because she's a so-called N lover.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So now my father's left at the hospital with no mother. So now my father steps in, takes him home, but he's damaged, right? He's like, I'm always going to live off the state. So now you have this, system. I'm living off the system. You have he has his son growing up broken without a mother because of slavery and all these things. Then he gets with my mother, who's a French lady, Cape Verdean man, French lady, which is my father, right? And now has kids, but he's broken, being raised by a broken man. And now all these things happen. So now look at me, so-called maybe white man, grows up in this community of Spanish, black, broken system, and raised with this culture of hip hop, which came from slavery, of, the foods, like they said, were delicacies, which were the scraps that were thrown to the poor people, raised up in this culture, right? So I live this way, but now they don't see white and black no more. They see rich and poor, right? And from the beginning they didn't, but they had the working man that thought they was better than the black man, or the Latins or the Asians, police, factory workers, which were the bosses, So at this level here, they're thinking they're at this level here. So now these white kids are being raised in this community, and these black and Latino, but being raised up in this culture of like, poverty projects, fighting, all drug dealing and all these things, raised up in this culture now, right? Yeah. So now it's, it evolves into what we have today, shooting, killing, hip hop going crazy. It ends with education. So that's that's really what it is. It's educating people on what really happened, you know, and the progression of things, you know, educating in your household, right? Then educating in the community about how they're trying to make broken men with these ideas of like either stuff your feelings way down in or just puke all over everybody and you're a victim. Nah, neither one. You know what I'm saying? So of like, you know, changing the roles of the genders and all these things, you know. So, I mean, it gets deep, but educating the kids in your household, educating the kids in your community, and then getting into schools. Well, how does that happen, right? So this is what I believe, right? Me and you, Mike, me and you, we're nothing. Donald Trump and Kamala, they're nothing. You know why people know who they are? They have millions of people behind each one of them. And until we educate and get millions of people behind us saying the truth about slavery and the progression and how it destroyed the most of society, and it's only addressed when it gets into the suburban neighborhoods, you know what I'm saying? Whether you're white, whether you're black, and all this division. I've seen slavery seen racism on both sides, you know, growing up a white kid in this area, but then being a white man going out into this area with other white men who make money, you know, the racism. Yeah. So realizing that that's all such bull, you know what I mean? Someone said we're all shades of wheat, and that's really what we are, you know what I'm saying? So now if you educate here, I can educate in my house, right? I can educate in my community if they allow me, but then is, you know, well, it's my kid. It takes a village, like she said. But they don't allow that no more. Divide and conquer. And then it takes getting into schools. Yeah. But they have their That's new. Impossible. It's only impossible if we stay separate until we get a group of people who get together and get some people behind them.
Yeah, we talked about
how you move mountains.
Remember our conversation?
Or you end up dead. Either one.
Yeah.
We said
we're all gonna die.
Yeah, so you gotta live for a purpose, right?
We asked ourselves how we can take it to the next step.
Yeah.
Right? We said we have such a good message. We have, you know, we all know a lot of people around here, like, what can we do to take the next step to actually get people to listen? Because it does take a village. We can't do it by ourselves. We can't, you know, that's why I love doing this podcast, because I get to sit down with awesome people like you guys, people that I would never probably speak to that are coming on in a few, it reaches different people that I would never get to reach otherwise. Like, this message is going to get to thousands of people. And that's a cool feeling.
You know, Tupac said, he said, I probably won't change the world, but I will spark the mind that does change the world.
Just a few people. Like, I like talking about addiction a lot, and something that I just started talking about because I battled with it. And like, I didn't know how to approach it. I didn't know how to come out and say I was an addict. I struggled with this, but once I started talking about it and people were calling me and messaging me like, dude, like, your message is strong. I really appreciate it. Like, I'm struggling with this.
Oh, wow.
I was like,
did you hear? I just put two and two together. So she says the opioid, right? And then you got this white man over here when they were trying to destroy or keep enslaved the brown and the Asian man, and it actually fell on their ancestors.
Evolution.
Wow.
That's evolution.
They started the opioid addiction with the white man.
And they're destroying their own grandchildren.
It's incredible.
So we got to educate
the psychology behind how they're manipulating us. But that's also what makes me crazy, or quote unquote crazy, because it does end up
not crazy. You're so smart with that.
In the Bible says, if you're gonna be out of your mind, if you're gonna be in your mind, be in your mind for the world. But if you're gonna be out of your mind, be out of your mind for Christ.
Right. Yeah.
So it's okay to be out of your mind.
What do you think of like chemtrails and stuff? You like, because we were at the high school the other day, and we saw a couple planes, and we saw the trails, and she goes, "Oh, more chemtrails." And I looked at her and I said, not every plane needs to be a chemtrail. And I just said that because I do agree. Obviously, they are doing that, and they're doing it at a high level. I know that. But you can't just because one white guy is racist doesn't mean they all are.
Right. Yeah. And I absolutely love that about us is you bring me back down. Balance. Yeah. Because I am fully aware.
That's all. It's not any other intentions.
He's scared he's going to lose you to the craziness.
It's funny because his grandmother and grandfather had a similar relationship. She
Yeah,
tells
exactly.
me that she was the one that believed in chemtrails, and it was her
Oh,
husband
she had
Roger that
folders
said,
of it.
yeah, he kept her balance. So you
Yeah.
know, people are they gravitate.
That's why they
to
say
each other for a
opposites
reason.
attract. You can't be too opposite, but
Yeah.
you do need a balance of some sort.
He's able. That's
the point.
Yeah,
And
beautiful synergy of our
right.
relationship.
We met talking about aliens. Like that was
Yeah.
our first conversation. It was the
And then you invited them to your podcast.
Anunnaki. It was the Anunnaki.
Yeah,
Do you
we
know
were
anything about the Anunnaki? I would love for you to dig into that, and I'd love to have a conversation
They were
with you.
basically,
about
we'll
that.
have to
they were
do that.
basically the fallen angels.
Yeah.
I can. That's fine. I
Do
mean,
you know
I was,
a lot about them?
I was thinking about, no, I just hear certain things, but like I said, when it goes too far this way and it doesn't line up with the word, like I need a foundation. I know that at some point in my life, I needed a foundation. My life was too all
Yeah,
over the
that's a
place.
great
And my
point.
direction was
That's a great
terrible,
point,
right?
yeah.
And then once I stood on my foundation, I started to see the evidence
Oh, yeah.
of the truth when I stepped out in faith.
I just felt that. Because that's strong. You can have all these beliefs. You can think about this and think about that, but you got to stand on something.
But like
Yeah.
what Kaylin said is, it's good for you to look this way, that way, because seeking ye shall find, knocking the door will be
True.
opened.
Yeah.
And I think that's going back to the organic, trying to find it organically. It's like, I'm looking. I'm not.
I feel like your organic already happened and you didn't realize.
Maybe.
Because if you're saying you believe and you want and you have, then it already happened.
Yeah.
The desire is already there.
That's what I struggle with, because if I talk about that with somebody else who's really like involved, they're like, you're not doing enough. That's how I feel. And that's how I interpret
think
it.
Maybe you're, like I said, seek, because that's maybe where it's not enough. Maybe that's what they're trying to say.
No, like what you're doing, like you need to do more. You need to read the Bible. You need to be studying it. You need to do this. You need to do that.
I feel
And I'm like,
you'll find what you're looking for if you do. Because
Maybe an audiobook or
how can you
something.
know? Like you wouldn't know. You know some stuff about me now.
yeah,
You wouldn't have known any of that if we didn't sit and have this conversation.
yeah.
So that's kind of what you're doing with God when you sit and you read the Bible and other, tools that are gifted to us over time to get to know God, to get to know who He is. You have to read it. I mean, or you'll just know what you know.
Yeah, you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
We're not born knowing everything.
Right.
So.
You have a desire. God placed it in your heart. It says that He placed eternity into the heart of every man. I mean, I see it. I can hear it in you. I heard it when I listened to your podcast with him.
The curiosity.
And in John, it talks about you only come to Him because He called you first. So I can hear Him calling you, but I think you're hesitant to go to Him.
And have you seen that before? And how does it usually play out? Like, why do you think that? In
Because
most
of all
cases,
the
what
noise,
do you think that is?
all the noise in the world. We have so much information that we can access. So many conspiracies, so many.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on in the world.
Do you think that's why Christianity is kind of fallen behind, is because there's too much information? And before there wasn't. Before there was only the Bible and this and what you could get your hands on. And now there's like everything in your hands.
I think I think we were persuaded over time as a society to listen to everyone and everything and take in information, which is fine. But like he was just saying, the noise so much that you have to have a foundation for yourself. It's very difficult to find a foundation for yourself in this society now when I can just pick up my phone and scroll on TikTok for 3 seconds and hear about 3 different major controversies going on or major things going on in our country as far as the hurricane coming up, or, my sister was saying that she saw that people are saying the hurricane is coming because the government is sending it.
Well, they're saying they're using like
using CERN.
they're using
Yeah.
like radio waves to like
Right.
to make
stop it from
worse.
going in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Right.
No, to like
Does
make
it start
worse.
off with good intentions?
But everything you're asking is already written. It's already done in Revelations.
Mhm.
It says that God will give them over to their strong delusions, right? So everybody's living in this strong delusion, and it's when God puts that calling on you is when you need to seek His face.
I feel like you're
It's
there
imperative
and you're
'cause
feeling like
we're
it's
running
supposed to
out
be
of time.
something that it's not going to be, maybe.
That's a good point.
Like you're
Or maybe I'm expecting too much.
it's maybe you're wanting, and you can ask God too if there's something certain that you want, you can ask, and maybe that's what He has for you, like a certain experience, or some people it comes by dreams, or some people it's by like near death experiences, and they have like this where they see Jesus or something. And if it's something radical like that you need, maybe he'll give it to you. Ask for it.
I see.
I don't know about asking for that though.
Yeah, if that's
Near
what
death.
not a near death experience, but
you're real. I'm gonna tell everybody.
Some people they need a
yeah,
real.
some people need to almost die. It's crazy.
I mean, like you said earlier, it comes in different forms. Not one way to be awoken is going to be the way for everyone.
Right.
Like, not everybody loves Nutella, and that makes a lot of people happy, but you're going to find your way.
Right.
Like, it's true.
Yeah, like not maybe if I didn't already have the foundation that I had with my relationship with God before my cancer, then the cancer wouldn't have made me closer like it did.
Yeah.
But God knows me.
I wanted to ask you about your job and where you work now.
Mhm.
What is it that you do?
Where she worked before.
Sorry.
When you first got out of college and you got that job with well, where you work now too, but I was telling them about at that rehab or the.
Oh, I worked in a methadone clinic.
Yeah, I'm very
before.
curious about that because I was on methadone for a while.
Yeah, truthfully, I didn't love it because I saw that it was just a system to get people and make money. Like I didn't feel like they really had a heart, or not people in my position had the heart, but like, the higher up you get, the directors and all that, it was like the more intakes you can get to get the more people on the methadone, the better.
So that is the goal. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
I just noticed that it was like if somebody was like, I want to get off, that there was pushback.
Nope, they don't let you.
And I'm like, what?
I know. They do not let you. I wanted to get off so many times.
And they say no.
They say no. And you know what also they
But
do?
then they advertise it as not a long-term treatment.
No, it's
So
long
it's
term.
like
It's liquid handcuffs, man. It ruined my life for the entire time I was on it.
You have to be somewhere by 5. You have only until 11. I think my
I think
clinic
it was
5 to
o'clock.
11.
Yeah, it was 5 to 11. Yep. That whole experience, it made me gain weight, a ton of weight.
Mhm.
It made me a person that I cannot describe to you now.
Yeah.
I wasn't that person. Like I swear to you, ask all my friends, everybody who's stuck with me through this whole thing. I did not recognize myself.
Right.
And when I got clean, that's when I was like, holy crap, man. For 2 years, I've literally, I joined a biker club, right? I didn't even ride motorcycles. and I'm literally riding with a club, like a legitimate club. I was involved in organized crime. I was involved in shit that just was.
Well, I mean, the people you're around just at
It
the
wasn't
clinic.
It wasn't even that.
Already an influence.
I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't talk to anybody at the clinic. I literally went in with my hoodie on. I didn't talk to a single person. I didn't even, when I was doing drugs, I did them alone. I didn't even have a crew. Yeah. It was a very weird thing, but the more I talk about it with people, the more common I know that it is.
I was going to say a lot of people have that
experience.
It's
very common. It is a thing though, that when you go to try to get off, they're like, no, we don't want you to get off because
even just to cut down dose, they
don't
didn't
let
want
you
to do it.
And you know what else they do is they are very quick to bring you up. You tell them that you have the sniffles. Yep. And they're like, let's increase you 10 milligrams.
Yep. Yeah. It's always,
this is all, I was reading about all of this today. It blows my mind.
Todd, if you took 10 milligrams of methadone right now, you'd be done for days.
Oh, yeah.
You would be knocked out.
No, you'd be sleeping. Yeah.
I was on 220. And every time I said that I didn't feel right, they'd be like,
you
another
need
10, you need more.
Yeah.
You're just not stabilized. You need more. Then there came a time where I was like, listen, something happened and I need to start going down. It was so bad to the point where I had to do it cold turkey.
Because they won't.
They wouldn't bring my dose down.
It doesn't make any sense to me. And then it's like, what happened now? It's another form of almost slavery because now when you want to go on vacation, what do you do? Because if you're not allowed take homes, you can't go on vacation.
No, you can't.
Because you won't have your medicine.
I couldn't even go sleep at a hotel for the weekend.
No.
I couldn't do any of that stuff
unless
because
you have to go through this huge process of going to. They'll have to send a referral to the clinic that's over there, and then you'll have to pay for it outside of your out of your own money. Wow. Your insurance won't cover it. And it's just you're not able to do anything. You're not able to be anywhere.
When did you start noticing that this is
very
not right?
quickly?
Really?
Very quick. Yeah. I mean, I pay attention to people and how they hold themselves and what they do, especially in something like that because I've been made aware. of how people are used, people who are addicted or people that have certain issues that they have in life. And I mean, right away I saw that it was just a trick.
What I read today was that in the early 1900s, our government system was advertising that heroin was good for babies suffering from their teeth growing in, women's menstrual cramps. This has all been an agenda since the early 1900s.
I know, and everybody acts so
Kaylin.
confused now.
Yeah, this is just now, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the information is in plain sight, but until you do the research, you can't connect those dots because you just don't know. But once you do educate yourself, it makes complete sense. This is a well-oiled machine that is now at the point where they have methadone clinics working for them
to make you think that you're in recovery.
It's another psychology trick.
And there is no counseling. Like, you're supposed to go through, like, every month you're supposed to go through like a class that.
So I was a counselor and all they cared about was my insurable hours.
Yeah. Were you like a window person? Like,
no.
Did you give out the medication?
No, the nurses have to do that.
So you were up in the offices, like.
And basically it was like, even if you have a 5-minute interaction, you could bill for a 15.
Wow.
Once I started noticing that,
she told me about that. I was like, what?
I was like, no, wait, that's one that's insurance fraud. So like, no, thank you.
There was so many times where I wanted to talk to somebody, like truly I was having a bad day and I just wanted to talk to somebody that I could relate to, that could help.
You didn't have an assigned counselor?
I did, but it was a joke. It was a joke. I mean, I would go up there and be like, hey, like, I'm going through this right now. I'm feeling a little like, I feel like I want to use. I feel vulnerable. And like, even like talking about this stuff makes me feel vulnerable. I don't know why, but just,
I get that. I'm the same way.
But yeah, he just would be like, well, that's life, Mike. Like, you got to just sometimes, there was no experience. There was no like, I don't even know what I was looking for. I guess I was just looking for a little bit of like, you can get through this day. Give me a call in a little bit. Like, let's work through it together. That's what I would do. If somebody came to me for help and, I had experience and I could help them in any way, I would try to guide them through whatever they're feeling to the point where they're alleviated just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because all it takes, honestly, and, they say it in NA, they say it in AA, it's like, if you just don't do it for that hour, then you won. It's like, it's small little wins. If you don't do it for that minute, you don't do it for, and then all of a sudden, like, you're halfway through the day and you're like, all right, I can do it. I'm, it's truly is like hour after hour, day after day.
I
just
had
one day at a
zero
time.
training. They didn't do anything when I got there. Like, I was expecting it to be kind of lengthy because I'm like, I'm working with people that are struggling with something major. It was like, read this handbook.
Did you know anything about addiction before that?
I mean, yes, I have
life growing up around it.
Yeah, family with
that's a good
drug addiction. And then also I did study a lot of it in college. But it's different when you're working with somebody who you don't already have a connection with. Like, I expected some kind of training or shadowing, but it was more just like checking a box.
It's sad. I can only imagine the money that they're making. Do you know any numbers? Like,
no, we never seen anything. But I know that you get paid like pennies to work there. So
I think it's like $30,000 a person for a week or a month. Yeah, I think it's something like that.
The higher they put you, the more money.
Yeah, I want to say it's a week. I want to, depending on your insurance. I think neighborhood, they pay out $30,000 per week to whatever.
I had 90 patients on my caseload, and there was like 5 of us, and maybe 6, and there was no cap. So I was like, how am I supposed to do anything for 90 people?
That's $900,000.
And there was no cap. It was still do it. We'd never say no to an intake. That was like the motto. And it's like, cool, but of course we don't want to. But
what about failed drug tests? Because the policy is
a slap on the wrist.
The policy is if you fail 2 or 3 drug tests, you get kicked out of the program.
Right.
Because you're not taking it serious. I failed so many. Like I was still in active addiction. What that was for me was a pit stop. That if I couldn't get drugs that day, I was still going to be
you weren't going to get sick.
I was able to still function. Mm-hmm. So that's what it was for me. I didn't take it serious. I didn't take it, because the tools weren't there. I just didn't have that, it was a pit stop.
Yeah.
How many people were, when they took their drug tests, were found with heroin in their system?
Fentanyl. There's like no
Yeah.
heroin on the
No
streets.
heroin.
It's all fentanyl.
I
Yeah,
found
no,
that
really?
amazing.
Yeah.
They would go in and be like, oh, she'd ask them, what do you take? And they'd say heroin.
Yeah.
Not one of them would
Yeah.
have heroin in their
Right.
system.
So they
It got
thought
to a
it was
point-
being sold as heroin.
Some.
and they were
You
taking
could tell if
fentanyl?
maybe they were younger or not been using as long.
You
But
know-
the people that been using, they know exactly. They want the fentanyl,
You
and
know
they're
when that-
mad if it's not fentanyl.
You know when that really started happening was the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Pandemic, it
Well, it comes
skyrocketed.
fentanyl was made in China. It comes
Yeah.
directly from
Yeah.
China.
Yeah,
So
I think that we have like a secret treaty with China and Mexico because of our geographical location on the map. That Mexico helps us. That if we were ever get invaded, that they would protect us. So we allow their drugs to pour into our border. And the same thing with China. I think we have the same agreement with China. That it's kind of like back
That's
when
a conspiracy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like those
Sure,
are the
yeah,
conspiracies
that-
that I believe.
definitely.
in.
But
Yeah.
I'm- but-
it's
but
not
if-
even. It's just something I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
If you
something-
see the border, right? They have 20, like all day and night, they have these cars going through. They have enough manpower to check like 8 people an hour. If they held that up for any more than that, they would never get through.
yeah.
So there's all they do is load up cars down the street and say, send them through. Whoever gets caught gets caught.
Yeah, they'll send
Yeah.
a crash car. Have
No,
that
they-
person
no,
get caught
all day
on
long they do
purpose.
that. They
Right? No,
send-
yeah.
They send, if they send 8 cars in a row, one of them's gonna get caught.
I remember when I was younger, when I was still living in California, reading this news article, or it was on the TV, one or the other. My family was talking about it. But what they were doing is they were killing babies in Mexico, stuffing them with cocaine,
Yeah.
and putting
Oh
them
my
in the car
word.
seat, so
Yep.
it looked like they were carrying. Because back then you didn't
That's
have to have
terrible.
you didn't have to have a passport to go to Mexico. You could just go in and out with birth certificates, and that never left my mind because I
Yeah,
was like,
that's terrible.
we're never going, because we used to go to Mexico all the time.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, at that point, I was like, wait, what? They're stuffing I couldn't even wrap my young mind around that. It
That's
was so gruesome.
People.
But yeah, drugs, there's definitely
There's a weird
we have an
underground. There's some-
underground tunnel system within
Mhm.
our own country.
Yeah.
No,
where
they
what we
caught
see
him
on
for
the
that.
surface, it has nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't even scratch what's going on below
There's
us.
no real motivation to end this epidemic.
No.
That's the sad part.
curated
Is
it.
like, well,
Yeah.
where is the ending? Like, it's not going to be from leadership.
It's gonna be
it's
in educating your own children,
Mm.
Yeah.
whoever you can get to really.
Yeah.
And it's sad because even communities like where we are right now, it's hard, it's heavy hitting, and it's generational.
Do you think legalizing most of this stuff would help with the issue?
They're
No.
building a place in Providence right now.
The
I
safe,
thought
the
No,
safe
but like,
zone.
but like
no.
that it's a legalizing the ability for you to like do drugs and
in a
if you-
safe place. Yeah.
right.
That's
I'm
what's
talking
happening
about
in
like
San Francisco.
legalizing
Doing
it.
it.
Like you can go buy
Gosh.
cocaine in the stores.
No, I mean
Yeah, they
alcohol's
are.
legal. It doesn't
True.
change anything.
True. Yeah, man. It's just so deep. And you know what it is? At the end of the day, I don't think anybody has the answer. I don't think, we're all kind of living this life, politician, non-politician, white, black, whatever. We are all living
I mean, there's only one answer: is Christ, or you're on one side.
is to live a true life.
I mean,
is
and
to
people will be like, "Oh,
live
God
a-
is so mean or judgmental," because in the Bible it says, "Be of sober mind." The enemy is prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. And people will be like, "Oh, Jesus turned water into wine." Yeah, he did, but he didn't say get drunk,
Yeah.
because now you're at high risk of being attacked.
Yeah, 90% of
Spiritually,
issues come from
physically.
alcohol and drugs.
That's
Yeah.
why they used to call it spirits, because
Yeah.
it kills your spirit.
I said that to somebody recently, and they were like, "That's not what that means."
Yeah,
and I was
it's
like, "Oh."
exactly what it
All
is.
right, fine.
Yeah,
You
right?
just
I
know
never
when
thought
you
of
can
that.
talk.
I never
Yeah.
thought of that. Like, what else would it have meant?
Wine and
Yeah.
spirits.
Wine and spirit.
I mean, think you're a whole different person.
Yeah.
I mean, I never experimented with drugs, but with just even drinking, and I'm not even a drinker, but you're a different person when
Yeah.
you do any substance.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why
You're
is
more
that?
more open and more susceptible.
Yeah. All of a sudden you're in places
Your
you would have
trauma
never
comes
gone.
out. All these things come out.
But even your decision making skills.
Yeah, you're open to just do crazy stuff.
Mhm. And you
Right.
always
Yeah.
wake up and feel guilty, even if nothing really bad happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You just
right.
wake up and feel
Gigi
guilty.
always says that.
I should-
hmm
did I do something last night?
Yeah. I would just wake up and be like, something happened. That was
I'm gonna
bad.
make something up next time.
I used to
Like, you know what you did.
I used to get so fucked up to the point where like I would wake up on my kitchen floor face down, and I would open my eyes and my cheek would be on the kitchen tile, and I'd look and like my vision would be underneath my stove, and I'd be like, where am I? There was one night where I thought my car got stolen, and I got so messed up that I went to bed, thought it was a dream, and I had this dream where I was walking in the snow with a 30 rack in my hand, and headlights were coming at me in all different directions, and I couldn't see, and I was screaming, and I woke up and I'm like, oh my God, what the heck? And I get up, I walk over into the kitchen, and I look out my back window. For some reason, that was the first thing I did, and my car was gone. And I'm like, what the I'm like, somebody stole my car. So I call people from work, and I'm like, so I can't come in today. My car's gone, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, Mike, I mean, somebody really steal your car? They knew I was going through some shit at the time. I start thinking, and I'm like, that dream was pretty vivid last night. I said, what? So I start going through my phone. I start looking at clues, and come to find out, I drove my car to the liquor store. And when I left the liquor store, I walked home.
What?
And I left my car in the parking lot.
Yeah, thank God.
Thank God.
Think about this, and I think about this all the time. Think about, there was something that kept my car in that parking lot.
There was something that made you walk instead of drive.
100%.
Yeah.
Why would that happen?
Right.
In any other situation, why in the hell would I walk home a mile with a 30 rack with no shirt? I don't even know how they let me in the liquor store with no shirt. I mean, there was one socket, so I mean that could.
Oh damn!
But yeah, man, that was my life for a long time,
and look like what a risk you were at, and still a protection. So like we're still protected even when we do silly things to ourselves. But what so much could have happened, and you wouldn't even have remembered.
I know.
And it's like,
you know what's funny too? There's another perspective check, because you grew up in Cumberland. And, you know, I grew up in Central Falls, and I met you through, you know, Laz and everybody growing up in Cumberland. I would have automatically assumed that, not assumed, but I didn't view you as if you would even try something or live like that. You seem to always have everything put together. You seem to always have something good going for you.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't even expect when you told me that, like last year or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
I get that a lot. I was really good at hiding my emotions.
Yeah.
I was really good at hiding my issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of people that I told, even Laz, was like, what?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, he goes, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
You know, I'm your friend, dude. Like, why didn't you tell me?
To say
it is. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to go up to your friend and be like, listen, man,
I've been acting up.
I'm strung out right now. And, you know, as much as it probably would have helped me at the time, who knows if it even would have, but like, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position where you're giving this person to people that is almost a phony perception, but you don't want to give up that real,
even with,
you know, you want that to keep going because it's giving you opportunity in other areas. You know, people, at least if you fake it till you make it, there's still something that could come out of it.
Like hope.
There's still hope. Exactly.
Even with
there is
cancer, I don't like to sometimes share too much about it because I don't want that to be my whole identity. So I'm sure that's how you feel. Yeah. If you had told them, then is that all they're going to see about you? Or even now when you share, is that all people will see about your story?
I'm very scared of that.
Yeah.
Channel 12 wanted to do a piece on my addiction and how I overcame it and how I started businesses and kind of just.
And it is so important to share, but it's like
I didn't want to be
not
labeled
publicly.
I know.
Maybe only with a person you'll share as certain things.
As I'm talking about it to
it's up to you. I know, but like maybe parts of your story you won't share.
Crazy.
It's just,
because
you know what?
It's true. Like even today I was talking to some coworkers and like I don't just start my introduction with, hey, I'm Kaylin and I'm like survived cancer. Like, so when I talked about it today, they were like, oh, I would have never known. And I'm like, why would you just know? Like, you know, and it's not who I am. Even when I had it, I was like, this is not who I would be like, I don't identify with this. Like, and I really felt that way. I'm like, this is not me. Like, this doesn't sit right with me. And he'd be like, it's not supposed to. And I'm like, I know, but it's so weird to be having an experience in your body where you don't
Identify.
that's
Identify
not who
with-
you
yeah.
are.
I know.
But you experienced the same thing when you
Right.
were with the bike club. You experienced it, but you knew that wasn't who
Yeah.
you were. So you were there temporarily, but you knew the whole time, this is not me.
I don't
even being-
identify with life.
I know sometimes I just
Yeah.
don't identify with this place.
This
I know.
is yeah.
I'm not from this place.
I'm not from here. I'm just passing through.
Mm-hmm.
It's
What-
crazy.
She has a what do you do now? It's
I'm a caseworker with
it's a pretty cool job.
kids that are on probation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I actually work in Woonsocket.
So me and Sheena want to get involved. If there's anything that we can do that you see, we want to get involved in giving back. I wanted to start a sober home. That's my first step. And, you know, a lot of people tell me that that's not a good direction to go because it's seeking profit. But my perspective on it is if I can put together my own system, put together my own sober living situation, make it a mandatory situation where they have to include fitness and diet and just like, I have a few things in mind. Yes, it's going to bring me profit, but it's also going to give me opportunity to do other things outside of that as well. And in order to do some things, you need to make money. That's just the net.
Yeah.
That's the nature of life. So we were thinking about putting it together, this village where we could have a whole system where you come in and you do a detox, you transition to a rehab, do a 30-day program, then you transition to one of my sober homes. And in that sober home, we acclimate you back into society. We teach you about how to rebuild your credit. We teach you on how to start an LLC. We teach you on how to overcome those traumas that you maybe went through in the past where you're having a hard time. We have all those systems in place. But to reel it back a little bit, we want to start with just a sober home and see where that takes us.
Yeah,
But if there's anything that you work in Woonsocket,
I do.
oh, you do?
Mhm.
Yeah. So if there's any like food drives, any opportunity where I can talk with somebody that is going through a hard time and I may have lived that or have some advice that I can give, I would love to. And Sheena's really good at that stuff too.
Love it.
She's in school for psychology right now too.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot in this building. Downstairs is
Oh, really? I didn't-
truancy. No, upstairs.
I had no idea. No kidding. How did
I mean, probation. Juvenile probation is upstairs.
that's a great job. That's
You're right in the building.
yeah,
Wow.
that's
I know,
something.
talk about being led to something, right?
That's
There's kids coming in and out all day
Yeah,
long.
and they could use
Snatch 'em
somebody
up.
for sure because
well, how do you get involved? How did you just apply for?
yeah, I work for an agency that works with the probation. I
Yeah.
don't work for probation.
Yeah.
I would like to eventually.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always opportunity like with stuff like that. Like even if we just created our own foundation to where we could, you know, put our own systems in place and help people that are on probation to get
Help
through.
educate, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's the system.
Yeah,
Mhm.
You need to do that so you can break into schools
yeah,
because
we
the
do-
whole agenda is
yeah. Even if we
going
do it
wrong.
for nonprofit for a little bit,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that's where I think a lot of.
I mean,
who's going to
things we
take the
need.
lead. That's what I want.
You do need to make profit. Like for somebody to say to you, oh, well, it's just for profit. Realistically, it's not. I mean, you just have to have self-control. Are you somebody who you have to ask yourself, am I somebody who can have resources coming in and I have the self-control to divvy it out the way it's supposed to?
Now I am. Now I used.
you-
that was
if
never
you're
like
that
that.
person,
Yeah.
Then you should do it.
Yeah.
If you're not, then you give that role to somebody else.
That's a good question. Who's going to lead it? You know, there's a lot of people that I'm in contact with day in and day out that almost look like they need direction. And a lot of people call me, and one of them is our friend, and he kind of wants to do all of these different things, but he needs someone to put them in place and say, this is what we're doing. Let's get to work. So
That's kind of how I am too. Like, ask me and I'll show up.
yeah,
I always pray like I say this prayer like, Lord, use me.
yeah.
And then later on, I'm like, well, you don't have to use me that much. But,
Hey, it
Just
takes
kidding,
a,
just
it takes a
kidding.
village. At the end of the day, we all,
but once you ask for something from God, whatever comes with that, you better accept it and you better not complain because that's what you were asking for.
true.
Mhm.
In life, we make
Good and bad,
decisions,
good and bad.
whether they're good or bad decisions. We accept what comes with that. And that's what being a man of God is. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's not woe was me. We're not victims. We're victors in Christ Jesus.
Yeah.
So you stand on everything. You know, maybe you're not happy about it, But it's like, hey, this is what I asked for. This
Stand
is the
on it.
decision I made.
Yeah.
And then that's where the correction is. That's where the growth is. That's where it takes you to that place that you belong in, with that acceptance, and making that hard decision and accepting everything that comes with it. They're like all the disciples of Christ, all of them got killed except one. They got martyred, they call it. They went to death for standing on business. So they didn't say, hey, I'm going to stand on business and God's going to protect me. No, I'm going to stand on business, and there's a lot that comes with that. Prison. John the Baptist got his head chopped off.
Paul got his head chopped
Paul, just so did John the Baptist.
Oh yeah, but that was before Jesus.
That was from the girl.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, he's the one that
That's a good definition.
He's the one that
of standing on
baptized Jesus.
business.
Yeah, but
he got his head chopped off. Paul got his head chopped off.
Yeah.
His brother got crucified upside down because he said, "You don't crucify me the same way as Jesus, because I'm not good enough to get crucified that way. Yeah. Crucify me upside down." So all these guys, they stood on business and they accepted everything that came with it. So that's what I'm saying. Stepping into a role like that of helping and growing and all these things, whatever comes with that, we can't say, "Oh,
anytime
man,
you're
why
doing
me?"
good work, the enemy's gonna come for you.
You know that.
But so isn't God. But so isn't God.
Oh yeah.
And he's greater.
But the expectation shouldn't be, oh, now I'm working
I'm going to be
God
floating around
having this
with
best
butterflies.
Life.
I mean, you're going to have a position of peace, but it's not going to
The position
feel good
of peace
or bad
is better than a feeling of peace because it doesn't go away.
Yeah, it's an actual.
What do you guys think about the concept of, okay, so we are told that we are created in the image of God. So humans have the ability to choose between good and evil. Right. So that would therefore mean that God also can enact power, good or evil. Do you think he's only good? How do you,
yes.
How is it that we have, is it just because we have less control?
Well, I mean, we actually brought upon ourselves the knowledge of good and evil to then that's when evil became a part of who we are. But that's not a part of who God is. When he created us, he didn't create us with that. He gave us free will, and then Adam and Eve chose to tap into that. Even though he warned them and said, you'll die. I mean, God is only good. And maybe sometimes like I said earlier, sometimes people forget that good means just, but
righteous.
There's definitely no evil.
So she just brought that up. That's something I've been thinking about lately. So as a man, right? So any men listen to this podcast. As a man, the serpent waited for the man and the woman to be separate, right? And so the slithered in, and God told Adam not to eat from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, right? And he was supposed to make sure his wife didn't, which he did, right? But the serpent came in and they were separate, and that was his chance to. Did God really say that? Will you surely die? Yeah. And so now she does it. And then Adam comes over and she hands it to him. You know what Adam was supposed to do? He was supposed to take that apple and chuck it, right? And there's a scripture that says, husband, loves your wives as Jesus loved the church. Men are supposed to lay down their lives for the church. So that was Adam's moment to go to God and say, forgive her, take me. And then everything would have been corrected right there from the rip. So it's the fall and the division, the fall of man and woman, but man meaning in general, mankind, was due to that process right there of letting something come in between, disobeying God, and then not correcting themselves right off the rip. You know what I mean? So as men that are married especially, or John, you're about to get married. If you're listening to this, that's her fiance.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The correction comes, and what did you tell me? It says, men, don't be harsh with your wives.
Right.
The correction comes, and your wife says, let's do this, and it's against God's will. You take the apple and you chuck it and you say, I love you, and you ask God to take you. And that's right. And right there now, Jesus wouldn't have had to die for us. We would have died for our wife. And God would have said, this is good. You know what I mean?
I mean, what a great responsibility men have,
Lay down your life.
because they're judged on behalf of their family. What did you do with your wife and your children? When I die, I'm getting judged for me. When John goes, it's gonna be, what'd you do with them? So makes
That's how she does.
yeah.
And men need to step up.
Now more
Because
than ever.
now look at this. Essentially, if a man was to, now look what happens, right? So now a man goes to God and says, "Forgive her, take me." You don't think this woman is automatically going to submit to that man who's given up his life for her?
Yeah, of course.
So
course
now
they- of course
it's
you will.
hard that you the wife wants you to eat the apple, but you know it's wrong.
Yeah.
But you got to do what's good by God. But you don't say, "Oh, you stupid idiot, give me the apple," and smack her with it.
Yeah.
You chuck it and you say, "God," you know, and then submission, and then correction. You know what I mean?
Oh, this is an awesome podcast. One of the main takeaways that I got from it was just find where you're at in life and stand on it. You know, you can think here, you can think there, but you know, find that balance and try to stand on it. And if anything comes in between that, you know, you got to brush it to the side and stick to what you're originally standing on. Yeah. And I think I hope everybody can find that. And you know, I just want to say that first of all, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having
Extremely, extremely strong. You are a Chattelle through and through. Amazing story, and I think we'll definitely do a part 3 soon.
I'm down.
Because we had a really good conversation. I could go for another hour, 2 hours, but
what I took away from everything you said was just live life with zest instead of just living day to day. Just live it with the most zest that you can.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for
This was
having
very
me.
fun, and we'll talk about a part 3. I'm sure people will see it.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.